open in France's hotly contested presidential runoff election.
All across the West, there is a new movement standing up and fighting for national democracy, and that is what Le Pen stands for.
Emmanuel Macron got an endorsement from our former president, Barack Obama.
He appeals to people's hopes and not their fears.
Never going to run for anything again. I can promise you that, but I'll tell you this. If I were to do it, I would pray that Barack Obama would do a video like that against me.
Healthcare fight heating up as the GOP-approved bill moves from the House to the Senate.
The president showed patience and vigilance, and he worked the phone. He asked people, what will get you to yes?
That line is so indefensible. Nobody dies because they don't have access to health care.
America is not going to allow people to die on the streets.
We're learning the identity of the Navy SEAL killed in action in Somalia, 38-year-old Kyle Milliken. He was a 15-year veteran who had been awarded the Bronze Star 4 times.
The House Oversight Committee confirming a sweeping investigation is currently underway in whether the Obama administration dropped prosecutions against several Iranian fugitives accused of posing threats to national security in order to pass the nuclear deal.
This is like giving something back to the Iranians that they can use again against us.
She's back. She had 8 solid years between her 2 catastrophic losses to find a message. She had no message, and there's still not a message.
She's now got to rely on that Clinton shysterism to cajole money out of people.
Come on, never heard of them. What? West End Girls, Opportunities, come on.
You need to listen to more music.
Nothing. I got nothing.
You listen to Ashley Simpson.
Yep, I do.
That is your bar.
I thought you'd be on my same wavelength for 80s music. My choices are that of a 16-year-old girl.
That's true.
That's pretty bad.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday morning.
Yes, thanks for being here.
There is a lot going on today. All eyes really are on France. The big election is today, and that could shake up Europe as French media is told not to publish leaked emails that really impacted Macron. But as you said, Pete, the last 48 hours or so,
yeah, there's
right?
a blackout. So there's a big question what kind of impact they really have. They're voting right now in France, and this is a referendum on the future of that country and the future of Europe. I mean, you look at 2016, you had Brexit, which was a rejection of open borders globalism. You had President Trump, which rejected the same. And now in France, they've got that same referendum. No one expected Marine Le Pen to be where she is. They don't know if she'll win today or not. But either way, you've got a clear gasp of the people saying, we want our country back. It'll be very interesting to see what happens at the polls.
Interesting with these emails, though, they have in that country a media blackout, which means the media is not allowed to publish anything, and there's 9 gigabytes of data of these emails that were leaked. So the media is not allowed to report it in the 48 hours up to the election, which is interesting.
There's been no impact really on the polls so far, and I think, you know, Macron is up by over 20 points.
But you could have the same Trump effect, where voters say, I don't want to admit that I'm going to vote for Le Pen. We don't know if that'll happen or not, but it could be closer. You never know.
You know, Nigel Farage, who we had on earlier in the show, who predicted the Brexit movement, predicted what happened with President Trump, and he said there is a movement going on that if Marine Le Pen loses this race, he said, I can predict right now that she will win in our next election in 2022 because something is happening. Take a listen to what he had to say earlier.
I think 2016 was a pretty bad year for people like Obama. Brexit was a shock. Trump was probably even worse for him. And, you know, the globalists will stick together. They realised that all across the West, there is a new movement standing up and fighting for national democracy, and that is what Le Pen stands for. But once again, of course, Obama tries to paint this, that somehow he's got the positive vision for the future. He is defending a failing, crumbling European Union. And whether or not Le Pen can close that gap today, whatever happens, Euroscepticism in France will have taken a massive leap forward today.
So if you're a betting man in 2016, you'd rather be with Nigel Farage and Donald Trump than Barack Obama in 2016. In this cycle, President Obama's trying a 4th time. You know, he tried to interfere in the Israeli election, couldn't get Bibi beat, tried to interfere in Brexit, couldn't overcome the Brexit movement, and tried to help Hillary Clinton. Now he's siding with Macron, the candidate who is favored. This is what he had to say.
I'm not planning to get involved in many elections now that I don't have to run for office again. But the French election is very important to the future of France and the values that we care so much about. I have admired the campaign that Emmanuel Macron has run. He stood up for liberal values. He put forward a vision for the important role that France plays in Europe and around the world. He appeals to people's hopes and not their fears. I know that you face many challenges, and I want all of my friends in France to know how much I am rooting for your success.
As Governor Huckabee said, we had him on the show as well. He said, I'm not running again for public office, but if I did, I would want President Obama to come out, former President Obama to come out against my candidacy.
Right.
That's
so
the best compliment
actually
I'd get.
Although maybe now because Macron is up by 20 points, it looks like he's going to sail on to victory.
Easy bet. Yeah,
it's like a fair weather fan.
It may not be that easy. You never know. I mean, it really is a referendum on the future of the EU. If France gets close and then the next cycle gets even closer, you could see the EU dissolve before our eyes, which was supposed to be the future, according to the elites and the globalists.
Yeah, we're going to be watching this, of course, all day for you here. Keep it here on the Fox News channel to see where that vote falls out. But back here at home, Senator Ted Cruz now admitting that Republicans better get on board with repealing and replacing Obamacare. He was on Larry Kudlow's show and said this: for 7 years, the Republicans have been promising, if only you elect us, we'll repeal Obamacare. I think the consequences of catastrophic, but it's going to take senators across the Republican conference being willing to sit down in good faith. And that is pretty amazing coming from Senator Ted Cruz, who had been a thorn in Mitch McConnell's side
right.
to say the least.
I mean, he certainly does not have a reputation, or hasn't up to this point, of really wanting to work with his colleagues. So I think that's a really telling moment there, that he realizes, look, Republicans have.
He's incredibly engaged. This is what professional deal makers and business leaders do. They can't just study something or have a commission or wait for the next Congress or the next election. They need results, tangible results and delivery immediately. And I think Washington has not seen this almost ever, if not in modern history. Somebody who comes in and says, how do we get to yes? Is it possible? How do we get a better deal? Things take time, but you're going to see, as the left just screams resist and jeers and cheers from the cheap seats, you're going to see a Republican president, House and Senate working together to get a bill that everybody agrees on.
The House has proven, and the Senate is about to prove, as far as Democrats are concerned, that they have no desire whatsoever to work with Republicans. They're sticking with resist. And so I think Republicans have finally realized, from moderates in the Senate to, Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, that if we don't close ranks, even if we don't agree with everything, then we'll all hang separately as opposed together. Get a bill passed, get tax reform. You've got a great first year, and Republicans can say, we did what we said we were going to do.
And that's the message from Mitch McConnell. And if you read the Washington Post this morning, interesting profile piece about their relationship, President Trump and Mitch McConnell. There's a trust there, and whispering into the president's ear about how to get a Supreme Court justice through. They worked together on that and got Neil Gorsuch. There's that trust level there, coming together to work together. So it'll be interesting to see. This will be the ultimate test, I think, for them right now, to see Mitch McConnell and to see the president and what this relationship will look like.
You're so right. That is such an important relationship, and President Trump has got to use Mitch McConnell. They've got to be communicating through all of this. But the Democrats, as you said, they are just still in resistant mode. They do not want to have. So many of them know the problems with Obamacare. You think that they would want to step up to the table to try to get health care right, not because, they're politicians, but because it's the right thing to do for the American people. But that's not been the case for many liberals.
Of course not. No, of course not, because they want single-payer health care. They're never going to admit that Obamacare didn't work. They want to go further toward government control, which is what the Republicans don't want. So they're willing advocates in the media. The opposition party, this time from Newsweek, goes nuts, impugning the motives of Republicans. This is Kurt Eichenwald, who I'd never heard of until today, but he did this and then deleted it. He said, as one with a pre-existing condition, I hope every GOPer who voted for Trump Care sees a family member get a long-term condition, lose insurance, and die.
How terrible is that?
So then he deleted that tweet. Yeah. But
thank you.
We just had we had Dr. Nicole Saphier on the show to break down a lot of these myths around what Democrats are saying right now about the health care law.
Take the politics out of it as a doctor and just look at what's really going on, fact from fiction.
Right. And this is a total lie. This is absolute fear mongering. We had Governor Mike Huckabee on earlier to talk about that. Here's his take.
I think they're unhinged. They're absolutely just coming undone. And if any Republican had said that about Democrats and hoping that people die and their family members get a disease and pass away.
I think we got cut off, but unfortunately, he went on to say more and more about the fact that they want this to fail. And it gets to the motives piece, right? And we talked about this a couple of hours ago. The reality is I didn't like Obamacare. Conservatives didn't like Obamacare. But no one looked at Democrats and said, you guys want people to die. You're horrible people. You just I think your approach is wrong. And here's why. And I'm going to litigate Obamacare and make the case as why the free market is a better way to go. They can't. It seems like they're not capable of that. They won't stay with the policy. It has to be you, Abby Huntsman, are a horrible person if you voted yes to repeal and replace Obamacare. You want people to die.
Right, it's a great
How do you have
point.
a conversation with people like that?
It's a great point. That's why you don't see people from different sides of the aisle having real conversations, because if you disagree with me, Pete or Clayton, you are just stupid and you're crazy. And what you think, you probably want the worst from the American people. That is where a lot of people sit today. And you hear these analysts, these politicians coming on the air, on the news, giving these talking points. And I think the American people are sick of it, because they know there's a middle ground. They just want a better life day to day. They want better health care.
And they're tired of worrying about the election. So, all the talk right now is like, well, does this mean Democrats are going to walk away with a victory in 2018 right now? And we're in the middle of this discussion. That's what Kellyanne Conway was saying, that journalists have a responsibility to talk about what's in the bill today rather than focusing on 2018.
And let's get it right.
So wrong. No, they want the Democrats and the elite media in New York and Hollywood to tell them how to think, and then they're going to vote that way.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing.
Wait for a commercial
I live in Manhattan. I don't know when it's going to wake up. One of these days it will, and realize that it lives in a bubble, and that people that we meet with all the time live differently, are affected by these policies, and they sent people to Washington to do something. They're actually doing it because the people wanted them to. That's the story. So let's look at the bill and what it does or doesn't do, as opposed to impugned motives, which they just can't help but do.
Well, as Chris Wallace said, it's now in the Senate, but it could take months to get right. And I think one thing you learned from Obamacare, take the time to get this right. Because if you rush through this and you put forward a plan that ends up hurting people, that's a disaster for America. That's a disaster for 2018. The list goes on and on. So much better to be patient, take your time with this, get it right.
And speaking of the bubble, we're just looking over your shoulder here, because what's happening right now? The bike.
No cars.
The five-borough bike.
Five-borough bike race.
There
Thankfully,
you go.
everyone is wearing a helmet, being very safe.
Yeah. I love New York City.
You never know. There's always a parade or a marathon.
Right here on 6th
there
Avenue.
Can't wait to get a car after
Well, meanwhile, you guys keep watching. I'm gonna give you guys some other headlines this morning. Starting with North Korea, it is making a direct threat to the U.S. overnight. The rogue nation vowing to turn the White House to ashes with a nuclear strike. An editorial by Kim Jong-un's state media claiming this, quote, "This is a stern warning to the U.S. imperialists and their stooges running amok for aggression and war moves." North Korea condemning President Trump's decision to dispatch naval forces to the Japan Sea. And this is some sad news. We now know the Navy SEAL who paid the ultimate price in the fight against terror. 38-year-old Kyle Milliken was killed during an ambush by an extremist group in Somalia. The distinguished 15-year veteran of Maine had been awarded the Bronze Star for heroism in combat 4 different times. He was also a member of SEAL Team 6 that killed Osama bin Laden back in 2011. Milliken leaves behind a wife and several children. Our hearts are with them this morning. And one horse no longer has to dream about winning the Kentucky Derby.
And the dream comes true. Always Dreaming has won the Kentucky Derby.
Oh yeah, the 3-year-old colt covering the 1.25 miles at Churchill Downs in just under 2 minutes and 4 seconds. Always Dreaming was the favorite going into that race. Up next, the Preakness and Belmont Stakes for the elusive Triple Crown.
That's right.
We'll see how he does.
Dreaming.
I love that.
I hypothetically put my money on it yesterday. Not sure I'm going to get any money back.
No, because Janice was in charge of it, and I don't know what she did. She spent it on mint juleps. All right, coming up here on the show, Senator Elizabeth Warren has an urgent warning. People will die because of the Republican health care plan. So what about all the VA problems in her home state? Our next guest is a veteran and one of her constituents who's here to call her out about it.
Fantastic question. I don't think this is one of
Look at your pants.
Never underestimate the determination of a criminal trying to sneak drugs across the Mexican border.
In her pants.
In the pants.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren calling out the House GOP over their plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. She went on a Twitter rant saying, "Trump Care isn't a health care bill. A bill that destroys health care for millions to shovel cash into the rich isn't a health care bill. This isn't football. It's not about scoring points. AHCA, the name of the bill, will devastate Americans' health care. Families will go bankrupt. People will die." But where's Elizabeth Warren been with all the problems at the VA in her home state of Massachusetts? Let's take a look. This morning, one of her constituents and veteran John McDonald is calling her out. He is the spokesman for Veterans Assisting Veterans, and he joins us now. Thank you very much for joining us, John, and for your service to veterans. So give us a sense. We hear the chatter, the yelling, the outrage about people dying because of the repeal and replace of Obamacare. What are we hearing in Massachusetts, her home state, about what she's doing for veterans?
we're not hearing a whole heck of a lot. You know, it was 67 days ago that we were on the front page of the Boston Herald asking Elizabeth Warren where she is relative to helping out our nation's veterans, helping out Massachusetts veterans, and we have heard nothing from her. You know, first of all, Congress had to do something. We can take no pride in being the healthiest nation, but most bankrupt nation in the world. Elizabeth Warren doesn't seem to have any sense of what's going on in Massachusetts or what's going on relative to helping our veterans. 22 veterans a day are dying in our country. It's a crisis. It's of epic proportions here. We have 22 heroes. These are heroes, combat veterans that are dying in our country. We had 2 veterans in Massachusetts recently commit suicide, and she is nowhere to be found. She's nowhere. She's running around the country on book tours.
You couldn't be more right.
Not representing us.
I wear a ring every day for 22 Kill, a reminder of the vets that commit suicide every single day. It's top of mind for many of us. Yet when she takes on this bill, she impugns the motives of her opponents. As she's a believer in single-payer health care. That's what she wants. That's what the VA is, single-payer health care. And you've got example after example of the Boston VA and others where it isn't working and vets aren't being served well. So why doesn't she learn that lesson, that the example in her home state is an example of the type of health care she's trying to impose on everybody else?
Yeah, it's baffling. You know, there were 2 major stories in the Boston Herald, so it's not like she can't act like she's unaware of what's going on. 1 in 6 cases of traumatic brain injury were misdiagnosed or mishandled by the Boston VA. We recently had, then the second day, we had a veteran by the name of Brian Callahan, who's a constituent of hers, had 7 years of being misdiagnosed by the VA and has had terrible problems with a brain mass in his brain. And yet, does she reach out to help out any of the veterans? No. All she is an opportunist. And it's unfortunate because, you know, we're not trying to make a political statement here. We're just trying to get help for our veterans and to get her to understand that she represents Massachusetts. And it's really frustrating when she's nowhere to be found relative to veteran issues, but all of a sudden she decides that she's going to run around the country and decide that she's going to run for president and pay no attention to her constituents here in Massachusetts.
Well, her constituency in many ways is her hard left political ideology and her dedication to that. John McDonald, thank you very much for keeping up the fight there in Massachusetts. Keep us posted if you ever do hear anything from Senator Warren. I will not be holding my breath.
I'll do that. Don't hold your breath.
All right, thanks, John. I appreciate it. All right, we are following a Fox News alert. North Korea says it's detained another American citizen. Breaking new details. We're going to follow that next. Details here. North Korea says it has detained another American citizen. State media there accusing Kim Hak-song of unspecified acts of hostility. Song had worked for the Pyongyang University of Science and Technology before being arrested this weekend. He joins at least 3 other Americans being detained in that country, including Otto Warmbier. Warmbier is serving a 15-year prison term for hard labor for alleged anti-state acts. Interesting. We'll be following that. Abby Clayton?
Yes, we will. Thank you so much, Pete. Well, it has been a busy week for President Trump with health care and religious liberty taking the forefront.
With this executive order, we are ending the attacks on your religious liberty, and we are proudly reaffirming America's leadership role as a nation that protects religious freedom for everyone.
But our next guest can tell, but only our next guest can tell us what's coming up on the president's spiritual agenda. President Trump's longtime spiritual advisor and chairwoman of his Evangelical Advisory Board, Paula White, is meeting with the president this week. She joins us now. Nice to see you this morning, Paula.
It's great to be with you guys.
Now,
and happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. And you had a chance to meet with the president. Tell us a little bit about that dinner that you had with the president.
It was an absolutely amazing time. On Wednesday, our president, along with many of his high-ranking officials, met with about 40 faith leaders that represent collectively almost 200 million people in the United States alone. Everyone from Dr. George Wood, who's over the Assembly of God, to Franklin Graham, Sammy Rodriguez, 40,000 churches, Dr. Ronnie Floyd, Jack Graham, on and on it goes. So it really was the powerhouse of the voice representing the faith community, the Evangelical Board. And we discussed our mission. We had almost 4 hours with the president, the vice president, and as I said, many of his high-positioned people. We talked about different issues, the 4 things that we would like to do as the Faith Board, and how we can continue to support this administration and just be that voice as well as receive the information to make sure that things get moved forward on a grassroots level.
Paula, you've been his spiritual advisor for years. How have you seen President Trump change since coming into office as a person?
I've seen his faith deepen. I've known him for almost 15 years and have had this walk with him for many, many years along with his family. And I really continue to see a man that has always loved God but continue to deepen in his faith. Prays every day. Of course, Vice President Pence and 9 of the cabinet members hold Bible study every single week. It's quite amazing, but I couldn't imagine the office that he runs not turning to God and asking for his wisdom and his guidance. And so he does daily.
Well, we already talked about the dinner that you had with the president. I'm sure you mentioned or had some discussion about his upcoming trip to the Middle East. What is that going to look like for the president? Did you advise him in that?
You know what that's going to look like. I'm sure his administration will let those details out, but we did discuss it, and we discussed many other things, and we're excited. I think things are going to look very, very positive. It's going to be a wonderful trip, and I think we'll come back with a great report. And it's very, very positive steps.
Yeah, well, it's always important to point out, I mean, the big reason why he won that put him over the edge, I mean, evangelical Christians came out in huge numbers, 80% for President Trump this last time. But we always appreciate you coming on the show and giving us a better sense of how he's doing and your conversations with the president. Paula White, good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Abby.
Well, the president vowed to fight for every single American job, a commitment he's made since day one. Coming up, hear from a guy who knows a thing or two about hard work. Former Dirty Jobs host Mike Rowe joins us live.
But first, Maria Bartiromo sits down on the curvy couch and talking taxes. That's up next. Come on in.
Did you pay your taxes yet?
Ooh, yes, I did.
Good. Penalty.
We had to. Chocolate in the morning or all time of day, right? Well, Mother's Day is coming up, and Chocolate Tex, they are so wonderful, and they brought us our personalized chocolates here on set. As you can see there, Clayton, Pete, myself have our photo on there.
You should be in the middle, though. You know, I don't
They can make these for you. Chocolate Text.
How dare you
so
get that out of
order. So you can personalize it however you want. It's a great idea for Mother's Day.
I rushed
your mom's photo
straight to the Clayton Morris, right to the Clayton
Morris. How did Clayton taste?
Well, I've always kind of wanted to eat Clayton Morris's face. So I think I'm going to do that right now.
Oh, yeah.
So go to chocolatetext.com to order whatever sort of ensemble you want. But the chocolates are amazing. They're beautiful.
And Maria Bartiromo is here as well.
I like the toolkit. Maria, we actually have a surprise for you,
You can take the toolkit with you.
The toolkit's really
we have a surprise?
We have a surprise for Maria. Take a look at this right here.
We got her own box.
Camera here.
Yeah.
Maria has her own box.
We love Maria Bartiromo and Sunday Morning Future.
Oh, you guys are so sweet.
It has your face on there.
And we got your face on it.
There you go.
So great.
Sunday Morning Future.
You know, that totally surprised. I mean, you didn't even tell me that was coming.
I know.
Which one should I eat?
Cool.
And a bag.
There she is.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you so much to Chocolate Text. There you go. You got to put this up in your office.
I love it.
There you go.
Great
Sunday
idea.
Morning
Well,
Futures, by the way, starts in about 30 minutes.
Yeah. That's right.
You have a jam-packed show.
Part of the reason we need to repeal and replace Obamacare is because a lot of people eat too much chocolate, and they got to go to the hospital and get their health care to take care of it.
Yeah, but you've got some guests on today to talk specifically about health care in the Senate.
It's true, because now we want to really follow what the journey, where the journey takes us now, and it is going to the Senate. First, we're going to speak with Steve Scalise. Representative Scalise is, of course, hearing concerns this morning about whether or not the timing of repealing and replacing Obamacare is going to impact tax reform. So we get the timeline from Steve Scalise this morning. And then right after that, we're welcoming Senator Bill Cassidy to the program. And he is going to be really critical in terms of where this bill goes in the Senate and how long it will take. So all of these are really important issues in terms of the president's agenda and its impact on the economy.
Well, Steve Scalise was asked specifically this week, about the pre-existing conditions.
Right.
And of course, these are some of the sound bites that have come back to haunt President Obama over over the years, right? You can keep your doctor. And he was very direct. It said pre-existing conditions, if you have pre-existing conditions, you will be covered. You're not going to have to worry about that. He's on the record about that.
That's right. And the president has also been on the record about it, to keep pre-existing conditions in there. I think what they've come up with in terms of taking the pre-existing conditions group out of a larger pool with the idea that if you take the really sick people out of this larger pool, the rest of those people in that pool will see premiums go down.
Yeah.
And it'll help stabilize. Meanwhile, the pre-existing conditions group will see the states help in terms of the cost. So they've come up with an answer to this issue. Right.
On the couch, we've talked a lot about the 1-2 punch of healthcare reform and tax reform. The sense was get healthcare reform passed so you can get the tax portion of it included. So are they optimistic on the House side that this will open the floodgates for tax reform?
I think so, because I think that there's a lot more common ground when it comes to tax reform. They all want tax reform to happen. We've all heard the calls that tax reform is going to be really the single most critical thing in terms of moving the needle on economic growth. Yes, there will be debates. There's going to be a debate about whether or not this should be revenue neutral, that if there should a border adjustment tax in there. What about all of these deductions? Which deductions should go and which deductions should stay? But I don't see the kind of upset that we saw during health care taking place with tax reform, because they are all on the same page. They want to get this done, and they recognize they've got a small window of opportunity.
Yeah, they absolutely do. All right, Venezuela. They are in crisis mode. They crippling economy. The White House is now getting involved. Is this the end of the socialist regime? I mean, that's a big question here.
I would say so. I mean, look at prices up 800%. Look what has happened to the people. Venezuela right now is starving. And by the way, they've got the largest oil reserves anywhere.
Yeah.
They should not be starving. They've got riches to sell across the world, and they can't because of socialism.
So what do they do?
Well, they're dying. I mean,
how about not socialism?
Literally, right now, they are recognizing this is not working. It's interesting to see that the White House is talking about that and getting involved. But I would say, yeah, people are recognizing that socialism has been a failure.
Well, and that's what, I don't know, you don't want to get too deep about this, but if you don't educate people about the past, you never learn in the future. I mean, socialism has never worked. It always empowers those in power and hurts the people. You saw it in the Soviet Union, you see it everywhere else. What an opportunity to educate the fact that free market capitalism has empowered and enriched more people than anything else in human history.
Bingo, 100%. And we're actually watching this take place. More than 30 people dead, starvation taking hold across the country, and they're expecting inflation prices to go up so much. 2,200%, 2,000% increases in prices. Nobody can afford anything. That's
I'm hearing about a $160 cheeseburger.
Yeah.
That better be a darn good
Before we let you go, I want to get your take on the jobs numbers this week.
Okay.
Where do you see the economy headed? Are we heading in the right direction? Or are we still in a stagnant place?
It was a good number. I mean, you know, it wasn't a great number. It's not back to the 375,000 that we were seeing during the peak in terms of economic growth during the 4% years. But it was more steadiness as they come. We're averaging about 200, a little more than 200,000 jobs. And I think this is partly anticipation of President Trump's policies. People are recognizing that we're about to see taxes go lower. We're about to see the needle move on economic growth. People are getting ahead of that. Companies are. So I do think that this is foreshadowing what's to come. Things are getting better.
Positive development.
Yeah.
Maria, well, we're going to see you in just a few moments.
Yes, you are. I'll see you in 20 minutes.
It's good to have you here this
Thank you so much. And thank you for the chocolate.
I'm going to enjoy a bag of Maria Bartiromo chocolates.
That would go for a lot of money.
Put them in a candy
I have a
dish.
feeling.
Thanks,
I love it.
I do want to bring you some other headlines this morning. I want to start with a Fox News alert. And North Korea says it has detained another American citizen. State media there accusing Kim Hak-sung of unspecified acts of hostility. Sung had worked for the Pyongyang University of Science and Technology before being arrested this weekend. He joins at least 3 other Americans being detained in the country, including Otto Warmbier. Warmbier is serving a 15-year prison term for hard labor, for alleged anti-state acts. Keep a close eye on that one. And turning to some other headlines, a U.S. gold medalist found dead at an Olympic training center. Bobsledding star Stephen Holcomb's body was found in his room at the center in Lake Placid, New York. The 3-time Olympian was best known for winning the gold at the 2010 Vancouver Games. Officials don't suspect any foul play, but have not announced the cause of his death. Holcomb was just 37 years old. And a woman tried to pull a fast one on U.S. border agents. Listen to this one. By smuggling 3 pounds of heroin in her pants, she strapped those giant packages of heroin directly to her backside before trying to enter the U.S. from a Mexican pedestrian crossing. Well, the drugs had a street value of more than $45,000. Wow, that's one way to do it, I guess. And Starbucks Unicorn Frappuccino causing quite the stir. The coffee chain facing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit over who came up with the idea first. The N Brooklyn Cafe here in New York wants $10 million, claiming it's been selling its unicorn latte since December and has the trademark pending. Well, Starbucks has released its drink. It released it in April, firing back, saying that the inspiration came from unicorn-themed trends on social media. Who knew there would be so much competition for a terrible drink?
A lot of unicorn sightings.
Did either of you try it?
No, is it good?
But Rick Reichmuth, it's one of his favorite drinks, so don't mock it until you try it, Abby.
He's kind of a unicorn connoisseur.
Not a chance.
Fantastic, right?
That doesn't go with Starbucks, if you ask me.
No,
I agree.
No, but anytime you pile one of that big pile of whipped cream on top of anything,
then you'll eat it.
Of a bunch of sugar.
You'll eat it.
Bad Frappuccino, I don't know, just pour it on there.
Rick, how are the bikers doing out there with you?
No way. Hey, guys, it's a little bit chilly across the east. We're kind of stuck in a pattern that is causing a lot of problems for some people, maybe causing some nice conditions also across the Central Plains. Really warm temperatures as you're starting off across the Central Plains. Cooler air, though, around the Great Lakes, and that's going to continue. And a really cool, comfortable morning across parts of Florida. Drier conditions. Unfortunately, we're not getting any rain. We desperately need the rain in Florida. We're not getting it at all, but it will at least be a comfortable morning with lower humidity. There you go. Across the Northeast and in towards the Mid-Atlantic, this system is stubborn. It's going to stick with us all week long and continue to plague us with cooler temperatures and cloudy conditions. And take a look at this out across parts of the West. This is a late rainy season storm across Southern California. We've got rain. We have snow levels down to around 4,000 feet. That system pulls in across parts of the Southwest over the next couple of days. We saw a temperature 2 days ago, guys, in Phoenix of 108 degrees. Broke the record for the day. Now today we're going to be at 72. So the cooler temperatures moving in with that storm. And this week we're going to stay warm across the Central Plains and the Southwest. Staying cool.
All
right, guys.
Thank you, Rick.
Nice. Back to you inside.
So Pete ate the chocolate with Clayton's head on it. He smashed the wrapper and he wanted to give it back to you.
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Just a little bit of love for your pocket.
Right.
Keep a little Clayton in your pocket.
All right, we still have more
Sweet on the
show
inside.
to come. Straight ahead, inside chaos on a plane packed with people. Imagine this rocked by dangerous turbulence.
Would not be fun. And forget the empathy tents, because one Ivy League school says late fees are just too stressful. I've never heard of empathy tents, but I need to learn about them. Former Dirty Jobs host Mike Rowe joins us live with a message for the campus crybabies of America.
Together, we are going to fight for every last American job, and we are going to fight for great trade deals that are so good for our workers and so good for our families.
In his weekly address, the president reaffirming one of his main campaign promises, making America work again. Joining us now to weigh in, the man who knows all about hard work, former Dirty Jobs host Mike Rowe. Good to have you here, Mike.
Good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Thanks, guys. Where's my chocolate?
I know. Everyone's going to feel left out now.
We tried to send some to you, but the interns ate it all. I'm sorry about that.
The interns.
We were just told that we do have chocolates for you. I don't know how they're going to get there, but we will figure it out.
I'll draw a picture of your face on it, Mike.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thank
All right,
you.
so straight to that point, I mean, jobs staying here in America, that is something that the president campaigned on, and that continues to be his main talking point.
Yeah, and I guess it's a good talking point. My main talking point is a little different. Not that I'm running for anything or trying to stay in office, but for me, the business of creating jobs and the idea that the reason people aren't working is directly linked to a lack of opportunity is a little simplistic. Obviously, there's truth in it, but my foundation is more focused on the 5.4 million jobs that currently exist that for whatever reason nobody is excited about pursuing. So we just try and tap the country on the shoulder from time to time and say, look, more opportunity is never bad. But let's not lose sight of the fact that there's so much opportunity sitting here right now, waiting for people who are excited about an actual skill that's truly in demand. Sure. So let's just not forget that this notion that opportunity is going to fix everything sounds great. It's already here.
People got to get off their couch and go out there. That's what I see. You know, you go to any little small business, I see signs all over the place. We are hiring. We need this person. We need a clerk for this. We need someone. It seems like there's jobs all over the place. We saw the labor participation rate this past week, and that jobs report started to tick up again for the first time. Are you hopeful that, well, people are actually getting off the couch and wanting to participate in the labor market again?
Look, I'm hopeful, but again, the political end of the conversation is always about the people, large masses of people collectively doing a positive thing in a very general way. It's beyond my pay grade. We focus on one individual at a time and trying to get that person turned around to the point where, A, they can see an opportunity for what it truly is, not necessarily a dream job, but a chance to get into a career that can actually pay the bills. So, yes, to answer your question, and you're absolutely right. Look, in 2009, when the recession was really at its peak and unemployment was creeping up toward 10%, on dirty jobs, everywhere we went, and I mean every single state, help wanted signs over and over again and again. So it's just easy to forget that narrative because it's confusing. It doesn't seem like we can have a labor shortage at the same time we have high unemployment. But of course we can.
We can. Well, Mike, we had to get your comment on this because we know you look to Harvard University as your moral compass. Well, it turns out Harvard has been saying their late fees are just too stressful for the students. This is what Harvard said in defending its decision to change some of that. It said, we have witnessed firsthand the stress that overdue fines, like overdue book fines, can cause for students. Eliminating standard overdue fines should help students focus on their scholarship rather than worrying about reviewing library books every 28 days in order to avoid fines. Mike, I got to ask, somehow in the past, kids managed studying and returning their library books on time. Why can't we do it anymore?
Talk about laziness.
These are dark days, my friends, dark days. Listen, it's too easy to shake our finger at the kids, right? If it were me, I'd be focused more on the administration. Somebody somewhere is looking at the college experience and saying, they're not students, they're customers. We have to keep our customers satisfied. And so if they're stressed out, it's almost like the soup is too cool, right? Go back and bring them another soup. Well, they don't want to pay the late fees, so let's eliminate the late fees. My feeling personally is, of course, the education is the most important thing, but right under it is some sort of preparation for the real world. Right. And if these kids think they're going to be able to not pay their rent because it's stressful, that's going to be bad.
Good luck. Good luck. That is spot on. That is spot on. Mike Rowe, we're going to have you back in the next block.
Yeah, you might remember last month when Mike Rowe sparked nationwide outrage over these muddy jeans selling for $425,
Unreal.
brand new. Well, this morning we want to know what he thinks of the latest trend, pre-ripped sneakers, only $1,400 per pair.
Those are hideous.
We'll be right back with Mike after this.